What happened to the A side in boxing? This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. In this live, we're gonna go over two potential fights that are gonna come up. We're gonna covering potential fights, and when do we start throwing the A side away in certain bargaining situations? If you have not been here before, this is your boy JG. This is Punch Report, all things boxing. You come in, please be so kind. Hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Engagement is always appreciated. So, as a lot of us know, two fights on the horizon that we've been spending a lot of time talking about. You got the Errol Spence Jr. bout, Terrence Bud Crawford, and in my opinion, the less likely bout would be the Ryan Garcia Tank Davis fight. But one of the conversations, or a main point of the conversation that has been kind of head scratching for me, is this idea that guys who have worked really hard to build their brand, build their name, go out, win world titles, sell pay-per-views, and put on for the sport of boxing in a big way. Now, when we come to the point where, what's going on with it? I see you. Now that we come to the point where it's time to make some of the biggest fights in the sport of boxing, the A side, or the perceived A side, and I don't think it's really a perception, to be honest with you. If you're the A side, you're the A side. What's going on, Brenda? Glad you made it in the building. Good to see you. The perceived A side now has to make certain concessions. I'll start with Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Tank Davis. Shout out to Ryan Garcia, 8 bazillion followers on Instagram, social media. He does this thing from that perspective. 23 years of age, still growing in the sport of boxing, still trying to find his way, but he does have notoriety. People know who he's checking for, or people are checking for him, I should say. Hold on one second. What's going on, Alyssa? People are checking for him per se, but when you start mentioning names like Gervonta Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia in a potential upcoming bout, why is it now the conversation will just make the fight? Of course, we want to watch the damn fight. Of course, we want to see the best fighters fight. I don't think that fight is ready from the perspective of, I think Ryan Garcia has a little bit more growing to do. Not saying he doesn't deserve it, not saying that he won't be competitive, but against a guy like Gervonta Tank Davis, a 3-division world champion, he's already done well in pay-per-view settings. He's, broken records at the Barclays, I believe, from an attendance perspective. Why now is it just make everything 50-50? We have both A sides, and this is how we get the fight done. That's an honest question. If you want to switch over to Terrence Bud Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. Terrence Bud Crawford, widely considered, in my opinion, right now, and I said this before Canelo Alvarez fought Dimitri Bivol, that Bud Crawford probably was my 1A for the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. Now you know that. So you guys come to the comment section hating, talking about I'm not checking for a Bud Crawford. If you didn't buy, I said this before, if you did not buy Terrence Crawford Amir Khan, don't talk to me about being a fan of Terrence Bud Crawford, because that shit was terrible and I bought it. That's what you do to support. But I digress. Errol Spence Jr., full-time only welterweight, right? We've only known him to compete in the welterweight division. That's not a knock on him. Former greats have done the same thing. He's collected 3 belts from champions. Sean Porter, Yordenis Ugas, and Kell Brook went over to Kell Brook's home to get that done. And he's really done, well, shout out to him, because him and his promotional team have also done an outstanding job making sure he's in front of American faces, putting on big shows, Jerry's World. And then he's doing his part as a combatant, going in there and finishing dudes, punishing dudes, and winning in spectacular fashion. And Terrence Bud Crawford, from his perspective, we already know that he's a tremendous fighter. Anybody hating on Bud Crawford, that's weird. He is a tactician in there, extremely versatile, crazy vision, wonderful timing, and he just does his thing. But he's made really poor business decisions. His business decisions that he made by re-signing with Top Rank, they're affecting him today. And they put him in a position where not as many eyes as should have been on him. Shout out to Lomachenko. That's a guy that I like. But if you think about Lomachenko and Tyson Fury on their ESPN banner, they really made sure that everyone saw Lomachenko. They really made sure that Tyson Fury got a big giant bag and got put on crazy, all while having Terrence Bud Crawford under their banner. They mismanaged the shit out of Bud Crawford. And that's been historic with Bob Arum style fighters. They go on, they find success elsewhere, i.e. see Floyd Mayweather. Bought himself out of this contract, I think it was $750,000, went on to do his own things, Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerbe, Richard Schaefer, all these guys, and it worked out for him. So when Bud re-upped for that contract, he essentially made it more difficult today to put himself in an A-side position. We are talking about the business of boxing, not who's a better fighter, not who's gonna get knocked out, who's gonna get slapped, and who's gonna get outboxed and jabs and shit like that. Typically, that's what I like to talk about. But I'm getting confused by a lot of the conversations that I'm seeing, whether it's mainstream media or even from other boxing YouTube channels, about just do 50-50, just make the fight. Do I want to see Bud Crawford and Errol Spence? Absolutely. Who doesn't want to see that fight? Let's go to these comments real quick. Bud is number one pound for pound, but not the A side. EJ in the welterweight division. I agree. And the thing of it is this: we already know Bud's a beast, right? 3-division world champion, undisputed at 140 pounds, undefeated at welterweight. You can question his resume, but like I said in my last live, if he's supposed to spark dudes and get him out of there, that's what he's been doing. That's what you're supposed to do if you're facing the lesser opposition. You're supposed to handle business, and you got to make it happen. What? Hold on. He dropped a litigation case against Bob Arum. That's crazy. If that's true, that's crazy. That will be fairly significant, because as of right now, unless somebody that's watching right now knows better than I do, who is he working with? Who's working the negotiation for Bud Crawford and Errol Spence Jr.? I have no idea. I honestly haven't really looked into it, but that's an interesting. If that's real, that's interesting. But I digress. So how did we arrive in a point in boxing where the A side doesn't matter? Another example, another quality example is when Devin Haney was on the rise, fighting everyone under the sun, calling out everyone. Right now, as far as fighters are concerned, Devin Haney's probably that dude, in my opinion, from the perspective of saying, I will fight anybody, anywhere. I do not care. I'll take less money. I'll fight somebody. But they had Devin get a belt, get a real belt, this, that, and the other. Devin goes over to Australia, works over George Kambosos, becomes undisputed, email champ, and all the other belts, and that champ. And now I don't hear anyone saying Devin Haney's name. Now, there's a logical reason behind that. It's likely that Devin Haney's still tied up. I don't know the word on the Kambosos rematch. I heard Kambosos said, I'm going to initiate my rematch clause. But Devin Haney said that was bullshit. So, I don't know. But what we do know right now, potentially, that Devin Haney's tied up at the moment. And that could be a reason. Hold up. Go winner takes all and see who flinch. Money says Crawford would, but you know what? If it was just fighters in the street, then I would agree with that. But the business for the networks and the people putting on the bout, they're not going to want to see that. They're going to be like, hold up, what about our bag? But what I would see is, let's do a rematch clause, right? Let's go 55-45 or 60-40. And then you already know you can go crazy, do 70-30 on the rematch, and the winner of the previous bout gets a lion's share of the money. Oh, okay, that's what's up. I can see that. And I did a video. I broke down the Devin Haney Kambosos video the day they announced it, and I said Devin Haney should probably just get property in Australia. He's gonna be spending a lot of time there, because this is interesting, and I won't spend too much time on this. But George Kambosos had no shot in that fight. He has no shot in the next fight, and here's the reason why. There's two primary dynamics, right? You have physical attributes of a fighter, and then you have their overall skill and ability. When you are deficient in both areas, that means you're going to get your ass kicked. There is no physical attribute, speed, power, delivery that George Kambosos has over Devin Haney. Zero. A fucking goose egg. Not only that, he's lacking in all the physical attributes as well. Height, reach, overall physical strength. Then he messed around and came in out of shape and got smoked. Did I know that was going to happen? Like, he wouldn't take it serious at home in front of all his people, 40,000 fans in Marvel Stadium? No, I did not anticipate that. But there's no way, even the best shape of George Kambosos is not really going to have anything for a Devin Haney. Now, what I'm also hearing, which is the unfortunate part, is that now they're questioning whether Lomachenko, which is part of this 3-fight deal that Devin Haney signed with ESPN, is even going to be available no matter what happens between George Kambosos and Devin Haney, which is unfortunate because he's been out for a while. Yeah, but here's the issue, and shout out to you. In my opinion, Loma waited too long to fight Devin Haney, and I agree that fight should have happened already. But the issue is when Devin Haney inked that 3-fight deal, If they can make the Loma fight, whether we want it or not, or think it's a little bit too late or has aged poorly, they're going to make that fight if they have the opportunity to make that fight. Were you hearing about the Spence no rematch clause? I got to check into that. I think here's what's crazy. Right now, we're doing a live stream, right? Having a conversation about boxing, and we're talking about fights that aren't even made. And that's the state of boxing right now. That's where we're currently residing, where we're having deeper conversations about what could be and what isn't than what's coming up and what we're excited about. Now, I think it's still worth talking about a Bud Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. simply because of the fact that that's a hell of a fight. It's a once-in-a-lifetime fight. I think it's a big fight. I agree with the perspective of Steven Espinosa saying this is not a Mayweather-Pacquiao type bout, or maybe even a Mayweather-Canelo type bout, just from a money perspective. But what I also have to acknowledge is the landscape of streaming has changed everything, that and piracy. People are not buying pay-per-views the way they used to. You know, the standard was set so high where if you do 800,000 buys like Caleb Plant, Canelo Alvarez when they fought, that's a crazy-ass number today. 800K, that's a dumb number today. So the average, you got to look at anywhere between 275,000 and 410,000. You've done a great number for pay-per-view. The landscape of boxing has changed. But going back to my original point, I don't offer an argument to a network stating the amount of money that we're going to offer for a purse, let's say, is $50,000. Excuse me, $50 million. 50K. We're not getting that fight. So $50 million, right? Then you have to start breaking down, you know, which way does the money go? Who's going to get 30? Who's going to get 20? Or whatever the case may be. I think both fighters should be trying to get the bag. I think regardless of what happens, A side or B side, it'll be the largest payday for both fighters by a significant margin. And I'm speculating at this point, but I feel like that upfront base money, we're not even talking about pay-per-view back ends or clauses or anything like that. The base money probably looks funny from the perspective of a Bud Crawford side. That's pure speculation because it's got to get broken down. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing of it is, I might get heat for this, but when you think about Canelo Alvarez, you're talking about a known commodity in the sport of boxing. He's already proven that he can sell. He has an entire country behind him that stays pretty loyal for the most part. And he's named known in America based on his time that he spent on Mayweather undercards, HBO, Showtime, whatever the case may be. So you can shell out $30 million to Canelo Alvarez, give Caleb Plant $10 million because you know it's going to do crazy ass numbers and do 880 million buy or 880,000 buys. You already know what the deal is. Shout out to Brenda. Should be a 3-fight deal. The only reason why I wouldn't see a 3-fight deal, not to say that I disagree, is both of these guys are interested in moving up to 54. So you're going to work out a deal between two divisions. And Bud Crawford has already stated he doesn't really want to fight deep into his late 30s, early 40s. He's going to be 35, I think, next month. So a 3-fight deal would be hard. And then you'd have to assume that both guys come away like healthy. Like, let's say unanimous decision, some good licks got landed, but nobody wears any real damage. And they come away relatively healthy, take some time off, and then go at it again. Now, both fights were really, really compelling. Let's say you do a 2-fight deal. Both fights are extremely compelling. Then you have to do a 3rd-fight deal, right? You have the Tyson Fury trilogy, draw, knockout loss, Wilder suffered, and then another knockout loss. But people wanted to see that fight. You know, people questioned Tyson Fury's shape. Deontay Wilder was a man on a mission. Ultimately, ended up being a great 3rd fight, multiple knockdowns, and it was fantastic. But you needed the first two to be compelling first before you can get the 3rd one. I think it's risky if you do a 3-fight deal because, I mean, look at both perspectives. All this hype for this fight, Errol Spence goes out there and just destroys Terrence Crawford to the body, stops him in the 6th, or vice versa. The crazy timing of Bud Crawford catches Errol slipping and wobbles him, and he can't recover, and they wave it off. Something like inside of 4 or 5 rounds. For me personally, sure, I would want to see it because I love boxing and I'm a fan of both fighters. But from a business perspective, are we checking for a fight like that again? Like, let me ask this question. Whether you wanted to see the fight originally or not, do you want to see Tank Davis, Rolando Romero again? Would you watch that again and pay money for it? Exactly. You wouldn't really want to see that fight again. And if you go back and rewatch it, our expectations of Tank Davis are so high, we expect him to cook a dude that we don't really revere, like Rolando Romero. He's entertaining, he hits hard, we know that. But Tank Davis really just did whatever he wanted and then knocked him out. because he was moving back in boxing, like the Isaac Cruz fight. Oh, he lost some rounds. I didn't like it. Blah blah blah. He really just did his thing. Oh no, who said Spence was going to fight Canelo? Oh, Charlo. Oh, thank you. I can't read. No, that fight's not happening. Spence not fighting Charlo unless they offer $100 million. It's got to be crazy ass numbers. Outside of something ridiculous like that, Spence is not fighting Charlo under any circumstance or situation. But when did the work that you put in the sport of boxing leading up to a certain point stop mattering? I guess that's my larger question. Because I think Canelo's the best example I can think of. When he signs the fight, no one questions who's going to get what. No one's like, oh, it should the splits be there. You're fighting Canelo. You know you're going to get a big ass check. And whatever he wants, he gets. Billy Joe Saunders tried to play the game with ringside and almost lost the whole fight. You know what I'm saying? Spence Crawford is different from the perspective. Well, I think Spence and Crawford are more relevant right now. A lot of what Canelo can garner in fight negotiations has a lot to do with the fact that he's put in work previously and sold previously. One of the biggest knocks on Bud Crawford is his pay-per-view numbers are absolutely trash. There's no getting around it. The Amir Khan one was abysmal, 130K, I believe. And then he did better with the Sean Porter fight. They broke, I think, 250K, but still did less than Errol did with the same opponent. That's a big deal. So now they're just asking, essentially, if I'm speculating, they're asking Bud Crawford's team, give us the money we deserve because of how good we are at fighting, not how good we are at business. And that's an interesting question. Pay me for my skills and ability, but not for my business acumen. Is that right or fair? You know, I don't even like the word fair, but that's the predicament that they're in currently. Yo, well, shout out to you. I didn't see the one about Loma, but if he's ready to come back, then shout out to him. I enjoy watching Loma fight. I think he's a beast. I think at 35 and up, he's going to struggle. The numbers even suggest that the bigger guys, more athletic guys, give Lomachenko trouble. I feel like he could still be competitive, but at the height of the division, I think he could have some problems. That's not to say he can't beat a guy like Devin or Tank Davis, but he would have to be perfect on that evening and get it done. No mistakes can be made. Like he got dropped against Jorge Linares. He was able to bounce back, you know, and stop him to the body, but he can't make it. You can't get dropped by Tank Davis. You're not coming back from that. Absolutely. The fight does have everyone talking. Even if you're casual, you know, I don't really like boxing that much, and you know, I'm bored and blah blah blah. Yeah, it's a crazy fight. When this fight gets made, let's say it gets made, when it gets done, that in and of itself will be like a victory of your favorite fighter. Just the shit getting done. If they can get it over the line, that's more than enough. It will put the boxing world on pause from the day it gets signed until the night that it ends in the conclusion. The boxing world will be on pause. If you make a fight inside this time period, or you have a fight coming up in between it getting made and then, I'm sorry. I apologize to you. You're not getting a lot of buzz or coverage. And I'm going to do 500 videos and 800 breakdowns on Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Bud Crawford on the dumbest shit you can think of, because that's how crucial this fight is as it comes up. But why? Why do you want to see if it doesn't get made at 47, it gets made at 54? But then it's a completely different fight with way different stakes. There has never been in the sport of boxing an undisputed 147-pound champion, and especially in the four belt era. It's never happened. Why would you want to walk away from that if you're Crawford or Errol Spence? And if it gets done at 54, yeah, I agree. I agree. But I think that if you're one of these people writing a big ass check, you playing it safe. I think it's a little disrespectful, to be honest with you. I think that if I have a budget to put on a fight and I can pay somebody, I can pay you 50 million and I can pay you 43 million, five or whatever, then I'm going to do that because that's a ridiculous fight. It is a big fight. I think the networks are treating it like it's not. And I think that Bud has left a bad taste in the business mouth of many individuals when it comes to putting on fights like this. That's just my perspective on it. Yeah, but see, that's the thing. I just want to see the bout too. But now we're asking people to, give up. Concessions happen, but they happen in both directions. I would definitely want to look into this deal where Errol Spence Jr. is apparently not wanting to give a rematch clause. I want to check into that. And I don't even like the terminology of an individual pricing themselves out. I know it exists in boxing. Sometimes people do it on purpose. A good example is when Orlando Salido, when he went to fight, or when he fought, what's his name? We just talked about it. Oh, Vasyl Lomachenko. Lomachenko's team wanted to get a rematch in that fight. If you guys watched it, Salido punched Loma in his junk like 538 times. It's like a record. The officiating was horrible. Lomachenko ultimately lost. They wanted a rematch on that fight, which was not going to be on pay-per-view. I think at the time they were even fighting for a vacant belt, but he wanted like $1 million for that rematch, that being Orlando Salido. It was never going to happen. So ESPN Top Rank, Bob Arum doesn't want to pay Sean Porter $1 million initially to fight Crawford. What makes Orlando Salido, he's not getting a bag. Went to the Ugas fight last April in Dallas. There wasn't a seat available. If Bud's team wants a certain guaranteed of the pie, fight at the Star. Simple. Shout out to Devin Wallace. But that's part of concessions. But we already know there's information suggesting that Bud Crawford and his team were not interested in having a fight in Dallas. I think Errol came out pretty early, said, I'll fight whatever you want to do, New York, Vegas. It doesn't matter. But that would be, I mean, think about that. All right, cool. We'll do 60-40. Or we'll do 55-45, or we'll even do 50-50, but we fight in Dallas. Right? Jerry's World. It'll be crazy. And you know that they're going to turn up for that shit. They're going to come watch that fight. They're going to watch that. And it's going to be like a 2-day, 3-day event. EJ is a draw, but EJ's a draw because he made good business decisions and he beats people up. And he's behind a massive machine of promotion. ESPN and Top Rank, they're slightly better than DAZN from a promotional perspective. Bud Crawford is really hurt by the fact that Bob Arum just did not put on for him. Didn't get him a Pacquiao fight when it was necessary. He had to fight Jeff Horn to get a belt. He does 2 pay-per-views. They both do terrible. The Sean Porter one went to purse bid and got drawn way out. None of that was necessary. We never just get to see Bud Crawford be Bud Crawford, have great promotion. Can you imagine Bud Crawford on the PBC banner and all the damn money they spend, how they link it with, NCAA tournaments and football and Fox? All you see is Bud Crawford. And then you see him beating the dog shit out of someone. You go, as a casual, I'll be like, I'm watching this dude as a beast. He's an absolute beast. No way, Dallas. I mean, yeah, they've already said that. They've already said that they didn't want to do that, which is fine. And I appreciate the fact that Errol Spence said to them, okay, cool. We don't do Dallas. We'll do a giant fight city. Hopefully you get a bigger arena. Because the thing about fighting in Dallas, that's going to hold 40, 45,000 people and do a crazy ass live gate. It's going to do crazy numbers. But it just sounds like the hang up at this moment is money. And I got to be super honest and say that go to Barclays then. But it's a smaller venue. Not saying that it wouldn't be crazy. It's just a smaller venue. You might have to do something crazy with the ticket prices to make it make sense from that perspective. But if you're a 3-division world champion in the welterweight division, Bud Crawford's coming up to his 3rd division. He's handled his business. I won't deny that. You put him in there with somebody, he's going to touch him, and it's going to be a wrap. So he's done what he's supposed to do from that perspective. But everybody fights in-house. Shout out to Brendan. PBC fights in-house froze Bud out. 2 things froze Bud out. Re-signing with Top Rank and Bomac saying a bunch of crazy shit. I forgot who was saying it. Oh, my gosh. I would love to get credit where credit's due, but somebody was saying that if I want to do business with you, why would I disparage you? If there's ever going to come a point in time where we got to make something happen from a business perspective, why would I disparage you? Why would we be talking crazy? And too much of that has happened. And if I'm Bud Crawford, especially when he resigned, and I know they have Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence Jr., a couple guys on the rise, and they don't have any real welterweights at 147 pounds, why am I going to stay at Top Rank? They make a bunch of weird promises, and he may have dropped the suit, but at least he went to the point of filing suit for racial bias. So you already know at that point, that's not a good business relationship. They've made too many business mistakes. And I've said all of this, and I just want to say this. Bud Crawford's an absolute animal. He's 1A, 1B pound for pound fighter on the planet. Why do I rate him the way that I rate him? Because he's shown me a lot in the ring from a versatility perspective. We've seen him get hurt and get in trouble, persevere, bounce back, and stop dudes. I think that's important. Um, and he's a finisher. He really is a finisher. So that's why I rate him that way. Bud is business illiterate, but that's the true reason why he's not the A side. The business of it does not favor him. No, I'm not gonna say that. But anyway, the business of it does not favor him, and so that's ultimately where we land. If you go back over to Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Tank Davis, the conversation is more compelling to me on the side of Arum is trash. Arum is absolute trash. And if you are a up and coming young fighter or well established fighter and you're listening to the sound of my voice, I appreciate you wanting to get a bag. But if you sign the top rank and you kind of look like me, you know what it is. You're playing games with your career. I'm just going to be straight up with it. If you kind of look how I look and you sign with Top Rank, ESPN, and you want to come up, I know shit, it's a dream to get a sign a contract, get a market deal. Question: what's the true dollar value of this fight? History of these two fighters doesn't project $1 million buys. However, there's a ton of anticipation for fans and investors. It's hard for me to say what the dollar value is, but here's what I do know. It's just not going to be, and this is the gold standard, right? It's not going to be Mayweather and X. Mayweather and X. It's not going to be that. Bud's numbers hurt this. Errol's numbers are better. I wouldn't say he's blowing Bud away, but he's doing slightly above average for today's market for buying on TV and satellite. So he's doing slightly above average from that perspective. Bud has to deal with the fact that his numbers are sluggish, not that he's not a tremendous fighter. The question that you ask is really the game that the networks who are putting on this bout are trying to play or attempting to play and saying, we don't see this as a crazy million buys fight. Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez at 800,000 buys. That's a great number. I think this fight is bigger than that. So maybe it does do $1 million. If you have projections, because right now the anticipation is what's driving the negotiations. The leverage in numbers is not what's driving the negotiations. They're struggling from that perspective. In my opinion, Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Bud Crawford is a bigger fight than Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez. Both undisputed, 168 pounds. Shout out to them. They put on a good show. Somebody got slapped. Someone's eye got cut. Whatever. Bud Crawford, 3-division world champion, undisputed at 140. Errol Spence Jr., freight train, undefeated, crazy body work at 147 pounds. Just those small snippets of information make that fight bigger than Plant Canelo. And then one could even argue, Canelo carried it, but really it's the shoulder programming and the way that Fox does business. And they put on fights, or PBC, excuse me. But hold on. I agree. Yoel, shout out to Yoel. Shakur needs to buy himself out of his contract. And if anyone's wondering, 130, 135, 140, Shakur Stevenson is the best fighter on planet Earth. It is what it is. We could argue that on another live, but that's where I'm at with that. But he signed the top rank. But at least he's stepping up in competition. He's getting title fights, and he's fighting names. So for right now, he's doing a hell of a job ensuring that. Hold up. Shout out Curious George. All right, I'll show. They said, I don't know why they're hiding these messages. This shit is weird. Show. This is weird. You said PBC suck too, but they got a crazy stable. Curious George, because you're black? Nah. Then why are there black successful fighters in top rank? Take Shakur Stevenson off the table, and I need you to rattle off 3 highly successful black fighters that we all know, recognize, and respect. And I'm not even being adversarial, but by and large, this does not work out for fighters. And this is like widely known information. You can go there and make a little bread, but you're not going to make what you're supposed to be making. And Devin Haney, the only reason he signed there is to get a title opportunity, and he already made a crazy ass bag from the zone. So the money was a non-issue. But yeah, Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, that's an even lesser conversation. I'm willing to entertain 50-50 and maximum concessions for both Errol Spence Jr. and Bud Crawford. I'll totally entertain that because I think it's worth it to me. Trinidad, 15 million for Vargas, who got 22 years ago. Well, here's the issue. 20 million is not a problem now, but I would, those two fights and that fight in particular that you're mentioning, I would say we were really legitimately operating in the golden era of boxing. I think right now boxing has great names, but it's just not as fruitful as it once was. I mean, I'm just saying, like, people were still fighting each other back in the day. Now it's talking shit and trying to skip the line and trying to get crazy bags. And the business of boxing has changed from a streaming perspective, like I mentioned before. It changes stuff. They can give away crazy guarantees because they knew they were getting that money back on the back end for sure. I got to turn this feature on. It's blocking a bunch of comments coming in. But I keep trying to get to this point. Garcia, Tank Davis, 3-division world champion, 28-0, I think 26 knockouts. Nico Ali wash. That was very good and very hilarious. That is not what we're talking about. Shout out to him, though. Shout out to him. Oh, man, that's great. We're talking about notoriety, name known guys. Like, for example, an easy one I could pull out of the air that's mainly just for promotion. I'm not talking about money. Who knows who Duran Boots Ennis is? Who knows who he is and what network he fights on? Right? He's in a position that he's in now because he beats people. He just beats the shit out of people. He's a beast and he's extremely talented. What I would say about Ali Washer, shout out to him. But if his name did not have Ali in it, we would not be talking about him right now. And shame on ESPN. Shout out to him for going out and fighting. You think he's up and coming? I'm not going to say that. I didn't think Errol Spence was up and coming after 9-10 fights, but he was an Olympian. I guess maybe my standard's too high. Maybe my standard's too high. If I'm thinking about Olympians, then you think about someone like a Shakur Stevenson as well, who's an absolute beast, and we knew what it was. Maybe I'll accept it. Maybe my standards are too high. But I think that ESPN, the top ranker, taking that name to the bank, we already know that Bob Arum had a long relationship with Muhammad Ali. He'd been in the game. Bob Arum's 91 years old. Frank Martin's a beast. Who does he fight for? Oh, thank you. My bad. Yo, my bad. I'm going at people. This shit's unnecessary. I'm sorry. Yeah, Frank, and look. And Frank Martin, he got the superpower machine, right? You got your promoter as Errol Spence Jr. You got his promotional company, and all of that's going to be backed by PBC. And they're moving him right, and Errol Spence is doing a good job, in my opinion, calling out realistic fights. He's not out here saying, yeah, Frank Martin, we're going to get you Tank Davis. They might want that fight, but let's do a Rolando Romero first or a Cool Boy. That's a hell of a point. That's a hell of a point. But let me ask you this question, Brenda. In real life, do you, not Ryan Garcia, because I believe that if the fight got made, he would want the fight, he would do the fight. Do you think Oscar De La Hoya wants to see that fight happen? If he's promoting, obviously he's promoting Ryan Garcia. Do you think he wants to see that fight happen if you're Oscar De La Hoya? Because my answer to that question is going to be no. I don't think that's something that he's checking for. His stable's looking crazy anyway. Shout out to Virgil Ortiz. He's got something coming up. McKinnison, I believe. I can't name Ryan Garcia, but I can't name another notable Golden Boy fighter. If Tank Davis if that deal gets signed and it gets done, and they go and fight in November, December time, and he gets his head knocked off, one, I don't think he has. I think some fighters deal with losses better than others. I don't think Ryan Garcia will be the type of dude to bounce back from a knockout loss or a bad loss to a Tank Davis. Even though losing a Tank, there's no shame in that. If you get knocked out by Tank, 28 other individuals have been knocked out by Tank, or 26 or whatever the number is, have been knocked out by Tank. Like, well, you got me too, and you just move on. I don't think Ryan Garcia is that kind of dude. I think if he gets destroyed by Tank Davis, it's going to be underwear modeling, movie roles. He's going to go the Conor McGregor route. You know, Conor McGregor he doing a movie with Ryan Gosling, Roadhouse. You know, he's a pimp. He might. Oh, I think he spends a lot of time being high though, and that could be problematic for decision making. You guys are comedy today. Shout out to Keyshawn Davis. But yeah, my larger conversation was this. I'm about to hop off, but I wanted to touch base real quick. My larger conversation was really, when did the A side stop mattering? Can you have negotiations, concessions be made? Absolutely. But to completely dismiss it because we want to see a fight as fans, yeah, we want to see all the fights. What's something that we can break down in the future? Hop on here and chop it up about. See, I like doing the lives a little bit better because, I mean, the breakdown videos are dope too, but them shits take a long time. You got to cut it up, make sure you don't get blasted up, whatever. Who's a one-trick pony? Brendan McDonald. Who's a one-trick pony? Oh my gosh. Oh, you made me nervous. Yeah, straight fastball only. Throws everything super hard. That's why I feel like a fight like against a guy like an easy one like Devin Haney would be. It wouldn't even be hard. I think he would just. And his defense is poor. He doesn't understand the frame. His chin stays up in the air. Shout out to Javier Fortuna. He was food. I think that the boxing skill and ability is just a little bit lacking there. Shout out to you, y'all. I appreciate the support, man. You a real one. If that's the case, in terms of guesstimating EJ versus Bud buys, then both fighters their highest guarantee and have the rest earned on the back end. As far as what their purse would be, what they ultimately get, if I'm reading that correctly. So you essentially take the base of what you've made before, and then if the fight earns crazy, then pay them on the back end. See, I don't think that's a bad idea, but it will still need to be a percentage breakdown. And they're still going to argue about who gets more. And I don't think anybody wants to see a scenario like Brenda brought up earlier where you do like straight man style and be like, if I win, this is the cut I get. If you win, this is the cut you get. I think that people would come and just advise against that strongly. They would say, hell no, we're not going to do that. But the respect that I would have for the fighters moving forward, I mean, that would grow tremendously. If you say, we're both going to get 20 million, whoever wins, you get an additional 5-10 million. That would be crazy. That because then you got to earn that check. That would be absolutely crazy. All right, but for the time being, it's my time. It's been love. You guys have been great as always. If you get an opportunity, like the video, subscribe, share, tell a friend and tell a friend. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. We out.